The rain begins before dawn, not the gentle rain that nourishes Roman fields, but a cold, relentless storm that turns the streets of Rome black beneath torchlight. Citizens gather silently because today, the empire is about to bury one of its own alive. Not a criminal, not a murderer, a priestess. A young woman sworn to protect the sacred flame of Rome itself. And somewhere beneath the thunder rolling above the temples, a Vestal Virgin named Aurelia realizes that gods she served since childhood will not save her. Because in ancient Rome, there existed a punishment so horrifying that even executioners refused to carry it out directly. A punishment designed not only to kill the body, but to erase a soul while pretending the empire remained innocent. Tonight, we descend into one of the darkest rituals in Roman history, the burial of the Vestal Virgins who were alive. The year is 90 AD. At the center of Rome stands the temple of Vesta, where a sacred flame burns day and night. Romans believed that as long as this fire remained alive, the empire would survive. If it ever died, Rome itself would fall. Guarding that flame were 6 priestesses known as the Vestal Virgins. Chosen as children, they were taken from their families and sworn into decades of service. Senators bowed before them. Prisoners could even be pardoned if a Vestal crossed their path. But these privileges came with a terrible condition. They had to remain pure. Romans believed the Vestals represented the soul of the empire itself. If one became corrupted, Rome became corrupted. And when disaster struck, someone had to be blamed. Aurelia entered the temple at 17. She was quiet, intelligent, and deeply devoted to her duties. She woke before sunrise to tend the sacred flame and memorized prayers faster than the others. But beyond the temple walls, Rome was beginning to rot. Taxes rose higher each year. Riots spread through poor districts. The emperor ruled with growing paranoia, executing anyone suspected of betrayal. Then, the plague arrived. At first it was rumors. A merchant coughing blood near the Forum. A family found dead behind locked doors. But within weeks, funeral pyres darkened the skies of Rome. The smell of burning bodies spread through the city day and night. Crowds gathered at temples begging the gods for mercy. And as panic spread, Rome searched desperately for someone to blame. Eventually, the whispers reached the temple of Vesta. One of the Vestals had broken her sacred vow. At first, Aurelia ignored the rumors, but then priests began interrogating the women beneath flickering torchlight. Every conversation became suspicious. Had anyone secretly met with a man? Had anyone left the temple after dark? The girls stopped speaking openly because they all understood one terrifying truth. Rome did not need proof. Rome needed a sacrifice. The accusation fell upon Aurelia during winter. A palace guard claimed he had seen her speaking privately with a nobleman near the temple gardens. No witnesses supported the story. No evidence existed. But by then thousands had already died from the plague. Fear mattered more than truth. Aurelia stood before the priests dressed in white robes, while crowds gathered outside demanding answers. Again and again she denied the accusations. But the empire had already chosen its victim. The punishment for a corrupted Vestal was unlike anything else in Roman law. Burial, alive. The Romans considered the Vestals too sacred to execute directly, so instead they sealed them underground with a little food and water, pretending the gods would decide their fate. The days before Aurelia's execution became a nightmare. She was isolated beneath the temple, while guards watched her every moment. Younger priestesses cried quietly nearby, but were forbidden from speaking to her. Every hour brought her closer to the darkness waiting beneath the earth, because death itself was not the true horror, The true horror was knowing exactly how it would happen. To imagine the underground chamber, the silence, the suffocating air. The moment hope finally disappeared. On the morning of the burial, thousands lined the streets of Rome. Soldiers escorted Aurelia through the city while rain hammered the stone roads beneath her bare feet. She wore simple white robes. Her dark hair hung loose across her shoulders. Some citizens wept openly, while others watched in silence. Deep down, many understood the truth. This was not justice. It was fear disguised as religion. The procession stopped near the city gates where a small underground chamber had been prepared beneath the earth. Ancient historians described it in chilling detail. A narrow staircase descending into darkness. A tiny room containing only a couch, a lamp, bread, milk, and water, as though these small offerings somehow made the punishment merciful. Priests recited sacred prayers while thunder echoed above Rome. Aurelia stood trembling beside the open chamber, staring into the darkness below. When the high priest spoke the final ritual words, witnesses later claimed even his voice shook with fear, because everyone knew this was monstrous. Aurelia looked once toward the crowd, perhaps hoping someone would stop it, but no one moved. The guards guided her toward the staircase. Step by step she disappeared beneath the earth. The torchlight faded around her. The sound of rain became distant. Then the ladder was removed, and the stones were sealed shut above her. Imagine the silence that followed. Only darkness, wet earth, and the sound of a young woman breathing alone underground. At first Aurelia screamed. Witnesses claimed muffled cries could still be heard beneath the soil long after the ceremony ended. She begged the priests, begged the gods, begged Rome itself, but the city had already abandoned her. Hours passed. The lamp slowly burned lower. The air inside the chamber grew heavy and warm, and somewhere above her, Rome continued living as though she had never existed. Yet something terrible happened after Aurelia's death. The plague did not stop. More people died. More riots erupted. Because sacrificing innocent people has never cured fear. It only feeds it. Years later, some Romans quietly questioned whether Aurelia had ever been guilty at all. But by then it no longer mattered. The empire preferred its victims silent. Today, tourists walk through the ruins of ancient Rome, admiring marble temples and statues, while guides describe the glory of the empire. Few stop to think about the terrified young women buried alive beneath the same civilization, because history often remembers empires through their monuments, while forgetting the human beings sacrificed to protect them. And perhaps the most terrifying part is this: the people sealing Aurelia underground probably believed they were saving the world.